Hello, one's Forest Focus. I'm not really an intro, so I don't really know what I'll say. I mean, I thought it was grim, and it feels like the familiar rot of the fight for 17th is thoroughly on, and it's a depressing situation to be in heading into the new year. Forest beaten 2-0 by Everton. Cross after cross after cross. Paul has some stats on how many crosses we put in. Were they effective? Well, we didn't score, and we lost to Everton again. 5-0 on aggregate. I'm waffling. Paul Morley, how are you?
Yeah, I'm all right. I don't know. I'm a bit conflicted. I think I'm frustrated. Obviously, I think we did a number of things pretty well. I mean, I've got repetitive strain injury from writing down crossed in, headed away, crossed in, headed away, crossed in, headed away about 53 times. Disappointed. It feels like it's kind of the third game in a row now from Fulham to City to today where, if you look at certainly from a stats point of view, it kind of feels like we've done enough to get something from each of those games, and we've again come away with nothing. So, clearly that's not good enough, despite all the endeavour. I think the word I would say is we showed a lot of endeavour, but again, the quality was lacking, unfortunately.
I think we might disagree about a few things tonight. Dan, how are you?
I'm okay, yeah. But aside from watching that, the art of crossing the ball for whatever, at least the first 45 minutes more than I've ever seen us do, and it was like noticeable. Sometimes these stats sort of creep up on you after the game, but this one you were thinking we just seem to be making so many crosses here, and it's just why would you pick that against that particular team? So there's a lot of questions. Overall, I potentially maybe agree with some of what Paul's saying, but I suppose we'll come on to that. At the end of the day, we just needed a result and we haven't got it. So that comes down to looking at players and tactics and everything.
I think maybe I'm partly annoyed because I saw Tierno Barry laughing on Sky saying he wishes he could play us every week because we're the only team we can score against, which is a bit disappointing. I mean, I think the thing that I'm annoyed by, Paul, is like Dyche knows what Tarkowski can do, knows what O'Brien can do. Why are we crossing the ball? This is mostly first half, but it probably applies to second as well. Time and time and time again. I thought they were from bad areas mostly. I know you saw it differently, but slinging a ball in from mostly the touchline. We had a lot of men in the box, but Everton, we didn't move them around. They were set to head everything away. Tarkowski, if you play FPL, must have had 50 DEFCONs tonight. It was ridiculous. So I found the tactics very annoying. You see it differently, do you?
Well, no, I'm not saying they weren't annoying. I think I texted you, didn't I? I said, look, Dyche obviously knows what their strengths are, particularly the centre half. So it does seem odd, or is it? I think it was at half time. Is it odd that we're pursuing this so much? I mean, like James Cunningham's comments in there. Paul Morley's the Forest fan list. Maybe a lot of endeavour, not a lot of quality. So fair play to you, James. Maybe you're right. I think was obviously the fact that we came out of the game with nothing means that the tactics didn't work and they were the wrong tactics, right? But I still think you're going to be hard pushed to go through a game where you put in 52 crosses or 53 crosses, or whatever it was, and you come away with nothing. I think I just think it's a culmination of the last couple of weeks and people in the top end of the pitch not making the right decisions. They're obviously being directed to do certain things, which is I guess the coaching team and the manager's feelings that's going to yield the best results. But it's not working. It hasn't worked in the last. So it didn't work today. It's not worked for the last couple of weeks. It's frustrating. I'm just kind of conscious of not getting too. It's 3 games, and we've got next game. We've got Villa away, and it might be 4 games in a row that we're losing. Then we've got to go to Wrexham, which is going to be a horrible fixture if we'd lost 4 games in a row. The scope for doom mongering is high, but there's also a context of we're only halfway through the season. There's still loads and loads of points to play for, and we've shown against the likes of Spurs, against the likes of Liverpool that there is quality in this side when we use the ball correctly. I think it's just a matter of working out for each fixture. How do we go about each game and try and not be too predictable? Because I think basically what happened at the end, as the game went on and more and more it wore on, we just became more and more predictable and easier to defend against. So, that's the crux for me, is that we've got to be a bit more varied in the way we go about things.
Yeah, I don't think today means we're relegated or anything like that. I mean, it means we are in a relegation battle and it's going to take a lot to get out of it. But I mean, I suppose, Dan, we played really well against City. We played really well against Spurs. I don't think we played well tonight. Is that us? Is that because Everton are a low block team and we just can't break down low block teams? What reason do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it is partly how well Everton defended. I think that is worth pointing out, that they were incredibly solid. What's frustrating about this game, I think, is that we played into their hands with the approach we took to try and break that down for at least the first 45 minutes. I think in the second half we mixed it up a bit more. But yeah, look, overall, in terms of our performances, we need space to work with. We need players that can run into that space, and Everton didn't give us that. And that's what Man City will do, because they'll overcommit. Whereas Everton came to this game happy with a point. They were happy with a point. They had their one opportunity in that first half. Frustratingly, the way they scored their goal in the first half was by opting not to cross and just keep the ball on the corner of the box and playing the little pass in the channel, which we couldn't do well enough all night, really. And they did it, and they scored their first goal, which changes the game completely in their favour as well. That's part of the problem. If we'd have got the first goal, we could have probably held on to a 1-0 win, I think, because we'd have been able to defend as well as they did. But when we're chasing the game, we just didn't have that quality. And I touched on it before, like, sometimes you just need someone to score out of nothing as well. You can talk about the approach of crossing or not crossing and the sort of tactical side of it, but sometimes you need one of those shots from Louise or Williams to just go in, and that's actually what you need in a relegation battle. It opens everything up, and it changes your perspective on the game, because I felt at times in the game, in my notes, around sort of 76, 70 odd minutes, if we'd have got the goal, I thought we'd have gone on to win it, because we were putting on a lot of pressure and they were starting to be shaky at points. We were getting the few more of the knockdowns in the box. We just didn't get the rub of the green or a bit of quality that we needed to change the game. And then obviously they go and hit us on the break the other way. So it's a case of how well they defended and how much we played into their hands, which does raise questions on the manager. But I think there's also an element of looking at the players and thinking, where's that bit of quality that we need to change that kind of game?
Yeah, I don't know why people in the chat are saying, wake up, realise we're in big trouble. We're 17th in the Premier League. Of course we're in trouble. We'd be blind not to see that, certainly. What should we talk about? Do you have to look at Dyche in this game then, Paul? Because I do think Dyche has done a lot of good things. I think he's done a good job overall. I think we've won 4 Premier League games since he came in. He came in when we were in a mess. But do you have to look at Dyche tactically today then, or not?
Yeah, well, we said it before. I mean, it was slightly puzzling the way that we, given the opposition, given how well he knows what their strengths are defensively, to continue to be predictable, as I said before. So you have to question it, but without, there is no other way to look at it other than to ask him the question of why did we persist with the way that we did, in attacking the way that we did. I think the thing in terms of, like you said, how have we done under him? I mean, we were 4 points adrift when he took over. We're now 4 points the other side. So again, if you said to, I think 100% of the Forest fan base that come New Year's Day we're going to be 4 points clear of the bottom 3 when he took over, we'd have all snapped your hand off. So that is also an element. I'm not here to blow smoke up Sean Dyche's arse, but I do think if we were all offered that scenario 8 weeks ago, 10 weeks ago, whatever it was when he took over, we'd have all snapped your hand off. So you've got to be that's another thing to be cognizant of as well. But yeah, tonight you got it wrong, or we were too predictable. Is my take on tonight, as I said 2 or 3 times already.
I know I keep throwing the same thing at you. Sorry. Is it more frustrating as well, Dan? Everton. I mean, I saw the team. No Michael Keane, Grealish on the bench. Their best players missing, and they. If we're an Everton fan, we're lauding that as the optimum away win, brilliant performance. But from a Forest point of view, you look at it, the context of the game, and you think big opportunity. And the teams in relegation battles, you say big opportunity, like Fulham away, missed. This one missed as well. That hurts, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. I almost messaged you before the game to say, like, we have to win this. When you see their lineup, I was thinking we have to win this game. there's so many short areas. Even Grealish wasn't back to offer that threat for the game, and I was thinking we have to win this game. And it's an opportunity missed because obviously the fixtures we've got coming up, although Villa's sort of form has unravelled tonight by the looks of it. All their XG has caught up with them, so hopefully that continues for the next game. But yeah, look, tough fixtures coming up. So for me, it was win one of Fulham or Everton, not necessarily both. Obviously, if you win both, that's a brilliant way to sort of kick off the next year. But just get one win, and tonight was probably seemed like a better opportunity even than Fulham, given the lineup that we saw from Everton. It's just when you see how well they sit in and keep their shape under Moyes, which is what he always does. You could just see as soon as they got that goal, it looks very, very difficult to see us scoring two. So then it's just about can you get something out of the game? But in terms of where we go from here, it's perhaps a good thing that we're not playing another team in and around Everton straight away, because if anything, going away to Villa just gives us a bit of an underdog sort of fresh way of playing and potentially a bit of space to attack as well.
Yeah, we'll come on to that. Certainly. Thanks you very much, Matty B, signing up for membership. Very much appreciate that. Quick word for the Trent navigation before I throw another miserable topic. Poor old Paul, sorry about that. New Year's Eve, 31st, obviously. Wednesday night with DJ Davo, Tuva the Mover. Free entry at the Trent Navs party. So free buffet as well. I should flag that more. So turn up on the night and enjoy an evening there to celebrate the new year. The other thing that people are going to question, I think quite rightly, is how is Taiwo getting on the pitch time and time again? Unless Callum Wendo's off on the first, I'd find it really strange, frankly. What did you make of that sub?
Well, I guess it played into the narrative of what we were trying to do in terms of getting crosses in the box and retaining a physical threat up there. Unfortunately for Taiwo, he just looks miles off it, doesn't he? He's not the Taiwo that we had a couple of years ago. He had that little spell earlier on the season before he got injured where he looked like he might just be sharpening up and coming back to something like his old self, but he's not hit those heights. And I don't know with Callum Wendo, I mean, is it a case of, we've seen it before, like players suddenly become better players when they're not playing just because somebody else is not doing the job. It wasn't that long ago on this podcast, every comment was Callum Wendo's a load of shite, let's get rid of him, he's rubbish. So now all of a sudden everyone's clamouring for him to be in the team. I mean, there's a comment in there, I think it's Mikey J said, look, we've got a squad better than being 4 points off the relegation zone. But every other comment in here is Taiwo's rubbish, MGW needs to be sold, he's rubbish, this player's rubbish. So we are where we are because that's the squad that we are. And the point I made before about we were 5 points beneath the drop zone when he took over. We're now 4 points above it. So that's progression. I'm not saying it's what I'm happy with or where we should be, but it's better than where we were when he first came in. The last 3 games, no points, is a really, really disappointing run. Like I said before, on another day for each of those games in isolation, you come away thinking actually we've probably done enough to get something, but we haven't got anything, and that's the name of the game is getting something. So something needs to change. For me, it wouldn't be the manager. I don't think it's wholesale changes in the squad either. I think it's just kind of being less predictable in games where we've got too much of the ball, or I say too much of the ball, where we've got more of the ball. And as Dan said, fixture against Villa, who are currently getting beaten 4-0 at Arsenal. So, they're going to have the wind taken out of themselves a little bit by that tonight after 11 wins in a row. Maybe it's a good time to play them as any. I'm not suggesting we're going to get a result, but it's one of those you go into where you're not expecting anything. A bit like City at the weekend, and actually put in a decent performance and, unlucky not to come away with something. So, yeah, I think the only thing you can do is try and hope that things are going to get better. I think if you sit here and kind of, be in a pit of doom and despair, and like, as you said, losing tonight doesn't mean we're going to get relegated, but some people in the comments would have you think it does. So I'm not of that opinion. I think we'll have enough to stay up. It's just at the minute it's not as comfortable as it should be, and I'm sure we'll get onto it. But the fixture we've got, not really against Villa, but the fixture we've got against West Ham in a week's time is absolutely massive. Like, we cannot afford, if we lose that game, then we are bang in trouble. if we come away from West Ham and the gap is still as it is now, then there's still an element of comfort. But that is a game we've got to get something from.
I mean, there's so many reasons we're in this situation, and one of them is we're on our third manager of the season. And I don't. If anyone says sack Dyche now, I just don't see the point of that. We discussed that. I still think he's done a good job, but I don't think making any change like that merits discussion at this stage. We could talk about recruitment for ages. Paul's mentioned the squad and everything like that. On Callum Wendo, the reason I wanted to come on tonight, Dan, was because it's a different look, and he'll run the channels, he'll make smart runs, different things like that. That's why, particularly tonight, I'm saying, what's the point of him and McAtee to an extent, because it felt like this game they were what we needed to me.
Yeah, Callum Wendo, yeah, I can see that. I mean, there was an example of it when one of the balls came across the box and it was behind Taiwo, and he just looked too sort of cumbersome to react and get onto it. And if he could have got a touch on it, potentially he's got the time to turn and get a shot off. So there's an example of that where you think Callum Wendo is that kind of striker in and around the box, in and around the 6-yard box in particular. He can get on the end of those balls and finish first time, whereas Taiwo just looked a bit cumbersome for that. So yeah, I can see why he would have potentially offered something, like you say, different. It obviously relies on the rest of the team. Like we said before, if you're going to cross the ball into the box, then there's no point putting Callum Wendo in there to try and do what Jesus was doing or what Taiwo's doing. But it's whether or not we could have adapted. And like I say, later on in that half, when Bakwa came on, when Hutchinson came on, well, with some of the moves that Hutchinson was doing, we were playing in the channels a bit more. And instead of hitting crosses in, they were more balls across the 6-yard box. But that's where Taiwo just looks too rusty to have an impact, doesn't he? So I think, Callum Wendo probably would have done better with a couple of those chances. But I think Taiwo is just a Dyche striker. I think, if you go back to Everton, he would have probably taken him at Everton instead of Beto or someone like that. I think it's his style of striker. I think where I feel a little bit sorry for Taiwo is Taiwo needs space to run into, right? He needs a big space where he can bundle a defender out of the way, take an overhit touch and still make it good. Whereas when a team's just sat there with 2 banks of 4 players around their box and you need a really tight touch, a technically sort of gifted player, he's just not the guy for that. And that's where we keep bringing him on in games where it just doesn't suit him at all. So yeah, it's a strange one. McAtee, less so, because I've not seen enough from him to suggest he sort of grab a game like that by the scruff of the neck and really make a difference. I thought Louise tried to do that for the first kind of 10 minutes when he came on, but then he faded out of it a bit. I think Hutchinson faded in the last 10 minutes or so. Is whatever 3 or 4 touches all went out of play. So again, you're probably thinking, why not freshen that side of the pitch up with McAtee? I guess just for fresh legs. But I think for me, this is the bigger concern. Is it's like, again, not necessarily about the specific tactics, but it's just about the fact that as a team, there's a few too many players that for me aren't able to impact a game well enough. They can look all right. They can look like they're having an okay game. They can be neat and tidy, but in the key moments, we're just not impacting the game. And that's what you get as a better team, as a better unit. When you've got the likes of Zinchenko, who comes in and out every now and then, and obviously he's a lone player and all that. Never would have thought he's being in a relegation battle. You start to question some of those players, whether or not they are fully, committed to what we're doing as a team, and whether or not sometimes that's what managers pick, isn't it? And maybe that's what Dyche is doing with Taiwo insofar as he sees that he's fully committed and all that, and other players are a little bit questioning what's going on at the minute.
We're second guessing the manager in terms of not knowing fitness and things like that, Paul, but would, in hindsight, been better if Louise had started? I thought he made a difference for 10 or 15 minutes, a different kind of profile player for that kind of game where you need to pick a lock and make things happen. Would it have been better to start with him? Yeah,
arguably. I mean, Dominguez, had a decent game on Saturday, didn't he? But like you say, it's a different kind of game tonight. It needed a different, needed somebody who could unpick that lock. And for all the good things that Dominguez does, Louise is far more of a creative threat than Dominguez does. Carries more of a creative threat than Dominguez. So I think he obviously made the right call at half time. It's almost a bit of, it was him acknowledging the fact that maybe he got that call wrong. So, maybe give him a bit of credit for that. But yeah, in hindsight, I think starting Luis over Dominguez would have been arguably a better option.
What did you make of Zinchenko's selection, Dan? He's getting a lot of stick for his performance. Was it that bad?
I can see why it was done against an Everton team that were going to sit in, and you're going to have more time on the ball. You need to be able to do a bit more with it, and I think at times he did do a bit more with it. You know, he passed it forward into dangerous areas, took a few risks with the ball, which you probably wouldn't have got with Savona playing. So I can see why he made that decision, but we know what we're going to get with him. You're potentially going to get a defensive lapse or getting easily beaten to a ball. He was sort of involved in their first goal, wasn't he? Insofar as he was that side of the pitch, and he kind of let the winger just sort of run a bit too close to our box, perhaps, that created a bit of space. And then I've not seen the second goal back too much, but some are saying that he kind of switched off there, a bit of ball watching for that one. And then there was one before that, I think the Tarkovsky header that he missed, that he probably should have scored. Zinchenko was playing everybody on side. I mean, that's the kind of lapse that you get from a player that's coming into a team that's just not. They're the concerns I have, is that's down to being a solid unit. And when you bring these players in for one game here and not the next game and stuff, you get these lapses that can cost you. You know, again, with Everton, you concede one goal, you're potentially just going to lose that game 9 times out of 10 with the way they defend.
I can see in the chat pool every single player, I think, bar I don't think Jesus I've seen, John Victor I haven't seen, and Nico are getting a lot of hammer. Who came out of tonight with credit, if anyone, do you think?
Difficult one. I mean, Bakwa looked. I know he's only on the field for 5 minutes, but he looked lively when he came on. Like I said before, I think there was a decent amount of endeavour. I think Anderson had a half decent game. He won the ball a lot. Crosses were poor. Crosses were so poor. Like corners in particular, like dead ball situation. I've got the Arsenal game on the side of me watching here, and like surely teams like we must like get them all in a room. Watch what Arsenal do at set pieces. Watch how they deliver the ball. We seem to like we there's a number of times in the second half where we stopped putting the ball in the box. We were going short and then trying to play it back for Anderson to put it in first time, but he didn't want to. And then we're trying to play it around the corner for somebody. And by then, I guess we're saying like we put in too many crosses. And then the times where arguably we should put in crosses like corners, we're not putting crosses in. We're going short. So come back to I did not answer your question. Was there anybody that came out with credit? Difficult to pick anybody out that came out with a huge amount of credit. I thought Milenkovic had a solid game, but again, because we had the ball so much, didn't have a huge amount to do. So yeah, struggling to find anybody. Nico, someone said in the chat, always Nico's consistent. Hutchinson looked lively, but again, some of his deliveries weren't great. So yeah, it's tough to pick out anybody who stood out for sure.
I think Nico was probably the one I would retreat to, certainly. Their goal was probably their first goal, Dan, is probably what we needed, wasn't it? I think you touched on it. I mean, James Garner was the best player on the pitch by a mile, wasn't he?
Yeah, he's out of contract, isn't he, soon? So we can maybe try and get a word in, sneak him back to Forest. Sam Surridge is available and Brennan Johnson's available. We can get the band back together late, in January. But I think, it was a good ball from McNeil. It was exactly the kind of goal we've talked about. We don't see enough of from us. We tend to go wide. We tend to cross, not just tonight, but in other games. And those channel balls, when you can get a player that just runs, obviously a slightly different angle that drags a defender out the way, creates a bit of space. It can be so hard for teams to know which player tracks them. And in this case, Gibbs White probably switched off for it. I think they sort of picked that up on the replay. He switches off for Garner to run past him, which is not ideal when you're struggling. And it's a decent finish. I would slightly question the keeper. I think maybe a few times. I mean, when you look at the stats on it, the expected goals on target for where it goes in the goal is 0.1. So basically, a 10% of the time that's a goal, and 90% of the time it's saved on the stats. Now, because it's close, I feel like that's a bit harsh. But at the same time, I think we have seen saves like that. And again, when your team is doing well, or when you're in a good vein of form, I think a keeper can save that attempt. When things aren't going well, it goes in and you don't get that block. I mean, last season, the number of times that Sells rushed out to players like the Tieno Barry one on the second one and managed to somehow get a leg or a foot or something to block things away in around the 6-yard box, and it went our way. And that can be the difference between a good season and a bad season. So I think it's just a good finish, but ultimately a little bit of quality that we didn't have. And that was pretty much their only chance of the first half, apart from a set piece, wasn't it? That Tarkowski maybe could have done better with. So yeah,
I disagree with pinning that on the keeper. I think it's a really good finish.
I'm not pinning it on him. I think
might be 1 out of 10, but that's credit.
I'm definitely not pinning it on him. I'm saying though, it goes. You see those saved, and when you looks in, you save it. It's not like a complete worldie in the bottom corner, I don't think.
Oh, I thought it was. I'm more with Paul. I didn't look at John I haven't seen the second goal back. I need to see it back. I think I was just head in hand by then. But the first goal, I thought it was really good, to be fair, I would say. I just want to re-emphasise the set pieces point that Paul made, because it is in my notes. Well, Paul, you can go at it more if you want, but it's such a big area of the game, and I thought Dyche would come in and make a difference. But can you blame Dyche if a player can't hit an area from a corner flag? They should be able to hit a decent area, shouldn't they?
Well, you go back to the statement that we made when Dyche was appointed, and it's specifically rather oddly mentioned in there his record on set pieces at both ends of the pitch, I think, or something like that. And you've got to say that hasn't markedly improved at either end of the pitch. If anything, from an attacking sense, it feels like it's gotten worse. So I don't know, do we question Wone and Stone if that's their jobs to be working with the players who are delivering the ball and teaching them that? I mean, it feels like it's Wone and Stone. So, Dyche is getting a load of stick because he never really played for Forest, but Wone and Stone have protected. But, they've got a job to do in this as well. And if that's, and you read the things about in some of the articles that, from Daniel Taylor and other people that, Wone in particular is working with the wide players on delivery and all that sort of stuff, clearly ain't working. So, we've got to spread the collective sort of blame amongst the players and the coaching staff. But players, these are good players. That Elliot Anderson, like when he first came into the team and he took set pieces, Anderson's he's much more of a step up than Gibbs White. But is it a confidence thing? Partly, maybe it is, and that it feels like they're sort of hitting and hoping rather than really trying to deliver into a specific area. So I think the one thing I put down is just probably confidence, and it's just that it becomes this. It was a bit like the season under Cooper, or the half season under Cooper, half season under Nuno, where we just kept conceding from corners, and that became a bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy. Almost like, within the ground, you get a corner and you think, we're going to concede. And it's a bit like that when we get a corner now. Like I was thinking tonight, well, this is going to come to nothing. This is going to come to nothing. And you don't have any belief in what's about to happen is going to be anything good. And that filters through to the players. I'm sure they feel that. I don't know. It just needs one to go in off someone's backside and score from a corner, score from a free kick, and maybe the confidence changes and people start delivering it in a more positive way with belief in their own mind when they're striking that ball rather than hit and hope, because that's what it feels like at the moment.
Do we need to stick with one set piece taker? I don't know. Who took them tonight? Hudson-Odoi, Zinchenko, Anderson, Douglas-Luiz,
Hutchinson normally takes a few.
Hutchinson, yeah. I think we had 5 set piece takers in one night. I don't know what the answer is.
I think it was a bit daft that Bakwa took one at the end when Douglas-Luiz is on the pitch rather than, because then it's, and his was obviously just got blocked at the near post. I don't get why you do that. Even when you're chasing the game and rushing, I still think there must be a benefit in having your set piece taker that does it more regularly. And,
Well, the one that he took, he swung it straight out. Didn't he?
But it would have been but it was from the side where it would have been an in-swinger.
Yeah.
I just, that for me, again, it's just those little decisions where you just think, yeah, okay, you're chasing the game, but, this could be the one. I mean, probably too late then, 2-0 down, but.
Yeah, Zinchenko's set pieces. I know people would question his performance. Obviously, I thought his set pieces are all right, actually. He seemed to be the only one who can, from that side, hit a decent area. So, yeah, disappointing. Right, let's do a man of the match, because there were a couple of players, just really briefly to wrap this game up. Then we'll talk bigger picture, and then we'll probably talk about, I don't know what else, a bit of transfer and a bit of, we might talk about complaining to PGMOL just to really round off the joy. I don't know. We shall see. Just before that, got to squeeze a couple of extra ads in. Quick word of thanks for Home Move Estate Agents. If you're looking to buy or sell in the area, do check out the link in the description. Lots of properties on there, and do get in touch with Ben and the guys there. Links in the description, and they are 5-star rated on Google. Just quickly, then Paul, man of the match, and I mean it can't be Bakwa, can it? But do a man of the match and say, would you want Bakwa starting the next game or not?
Would I want Bakwa starting? I mean, given we've lost 3 games in a row, Hudson-Odoi had a great game again. I mean, literally again, going back 2-3 weeks ago against Spurs, you know, man of the match. He was, you know, everyone was lauding him back to his best. He's had a couple of quiet games, and now all of a sudden we're saying get him out of the team. So, look, you've got these squad of players. You've got to use them, and maybe after 3 or 4 games in short space of time, it might be a time to give Bakwa a go from the start. You know, I say he looked hungry when he came on, a couple of good touches. So yeah, I mean, almost why not? In terms of the Bakwa question, I think going back to man of the match, I think it's probably got to be Nico, as we said before. The fact that he switched sides and he was playing a different side tonight, looked equally as effective as he always does. Again, I think part of that selection with Zinchenko coming in and switching Williams to the right was possibly with a Grealish threat in mind, thinking that Grealish might start, and that William, having Savona on an island against Grealish was probably something we wanted to try and avoid. So I think that was arguably or possibly a driver for that Zinchenko selection, switching Williams across. But yeah, Williams man of the match, other than obviously James Garner. I think he was the overall man of the match. But yeah, from a Forest point of view, I'd say Nico.
Yeah, I agree with everything you said there. I think, Garner definitely man of the match. It does feel a little soon to start Bakwa, possibly, but he's made a case at least and looked bright off the bench. Same question to you, Dan, before we move on to the bigger picture.
I don't really have one. That's the truth. I thought Callum Hudson-Odoi started okay. I thought he took on his man quite a bit, and he did okay. And I thought Hutchinson did that first half. It was just the final ball was so missing. And then I don't think the central defenders did anything wrong for us. On another day, if we win that game, you're looking at them and saying, well, it was another solid performance. So yeah, you could give it to Nico Williams. You could give it to Hutchinson for trying to make something happen in the first kind of 60-odd minutes of the game. Then he sort of faded away. I actually think on another day, Gibbs White should have a goal and an assist in that game for what he did in and around the box. That is obviously on the end of that header that Pickford jumped in the way of. He was in the right place quite a few times, and he put a couple of good balls across the 6-yard box that, like I say, Taiwo didn't get onto and stuff. So I think again on another day, Gibbs White could potentially have something out of that game that we're singing his praises for. But in terms of an actual man of the match, truth is nobody really stood out. Even Williams didn't necessarily stand out because I don't think he offered too much going forward, in my view. So yeah, tough one to call that for me.
Just on that MGW header, actually, where Pickford blocked it, I'd written down in my notes, could he have been braver there? He sort of stuck his head in, but he didn't really throw himself at it. If you see players that risk getting hurt to score that goal, he didn't feel like he did that. He sort of flicked his head at it, but for me, he could have done more. He could have been brave, I think, and he sort of ducked away from it a little bit, and that meant that he didn't really get enough on to trouble Pickford. I don't know what you thought.
Yeah, I think you might. Yeah, you've got a point, and I think it's frustrating as well that we create our proper chances when we're 2-0 down. I know Everton's kind of mentality's changed by then, and they've made some changes and taken Patterson off and things like that. But yeah, it's a shame that shot by Bakwa was a good one and things like that. But the game's sort of gone by then, so it probably just all adds to it. I would say. I think. Let's talk about the league table then. We'll do more. We'll do this tomorrow with Greg and Franz, who are probably 2 of our most upbeat panelists. So I don't know how this is going to go, but I look forward to hearing what they say. West Ham, 14 points, 19 played in 18th. Forest, 18 points from 19. So halfway mark, 18 points. So still a 4-point gap. They do play Wolves next, who got a point against Man U tonight, so they've stopped their rot. So that's not a foregone conclusion. And then Leeds, who have got a game in hand, which I think is against Liverpool. They're 2 points ahead of us, and then 5 points ahead of us in 15th of Bournemouth. So there is a danger, Dan, of that gap opening up now, and it looks like right now, it looks like a proper battle for 16th and below if Leeds lose tomorrow, which is pretty frustrating. But is that just reality and we've got to settle in?
Yeah, although, I mean, you look at Bournemouth, they really are. I know they've got a point tonight, but they're struggling to get wins. So Brighton, I'm just looking at the recent form, like the last 5 games. It's only us and Leeds that have got a win against their last 5 games from 14th down. So I think and we've seen what happened with Fulham, who suddenly won 3 and jump into the top half, and Brentford were at 1 minute were being talked about as an outside chance of relegation. Now top half again. It is a case of looking at a set of 3 or 4 games and trying to get just the win, a couple of wins out of those games that we need. This has been a big opportunity missed because Fulham and Everton, it feels like we're there to make our lives easier down the line. And it's kind of the performances that are a little bit disappointing as well because we've been so sort of predictable. I think form of teams will continue to go up and down. And I think Dyche has done pretty much so far what I kind of expected, I think, from him. Slightly inconsistent, good at getting players up for games, but not necessarily like a clear progression in how you play that's going to give other teams something to worry about or, keep them guessing. I think it's more about getting them up for games and getting the energy and the intensity, but some teams can match us with that. And Everton tonight did that. They matched it. They weren't going to be outrun or outfought on the pitch. So then what's left? And that's where my concern is longer term. And it's still a case of, are there enough games between now and the season that we can win by being braver or running a bit more, or, the energy levels and all that? Well, yes, I think there is. And are there teams that are still struggling themselves? Yes. Big questions around, obviously, January transfer windows, who strengthens, whether we can strengthen fullbacks in areas that we know we're a little bit short in. What was the question?
Does it feel like a relegation battle?
We're well in a relegation battle now. I mean, I was always against saying that because I'm like, what point does it make? But now you get to this stage and you can't see, you can't pick up these wins against teams like Everton and Fulham. Then you're in a relegation battle because you're relying on beating just the teams around you, and that's the only place at the minute you can see the wins coming from in the next set of fixtures.
I did go through the fixtures earlier today and look at, because I figured like we need 6 or 7 more wins, and there's definitely 6 or 7 winnable games on there. And I know every game's winnable before people flag me on that, but this was one of them. And so that's kind of why you look at it, especially with fixtures coming up. I'll just thank Chris Aylmer for the $50 Mexican. You don't need a VPN to work out where Chris is, unless he's on a VPN. 1 goal in 3 games, shocking. Everton and Fulham missing players both games, very true. Plus Man U drew Wolves tonight, so their Wolves aren't quite as hopeless as they were. It's very generous of you, Chris, by the way. Very much appreciate that. Right, Paul, here's a hospital pass. Next 4 games, we're pretty terrible away. Villa away, West Ham away, Arsenal at home, Brentford away. So it's a tough sell for you to convince people that it's all going to be good. I suppose if we can get 4 points from 4 games, isn't ideal, but it kind of keeps your head above water going into fixtures that you will look at in a different way on the other side of that. Do you think, or not?
Yeah, perhaps. I mean, you talk about the league table. I'm just looking at the calendar year league table to date, which is, we're 14th in that. So if the table, we've played 38 games this calendar year now. We've got 46 points from those 38 games, which is 1.24 points per game. Nuno averaged 1.27 points per game. I think Dyche, since he's come in, we've got 13 points under Dyche, I think, haven't we, in 11 games? So 13 divided by 11, 1.18. So Dyche is slightly underneath what Nuno was at for the time that he was here. I think we forget about Ange. So from that perspective, we're kind of, he's performing at he's getting the points per game at a very similar level that we were getting under Nuno since the beginning of January. So there's not a huge differential between what we're getting from Dyche and what we've been getting from Nuno in 2025. So from that perspective, again, it kind of gives you the sort of, I don't want to say confidence, but a bit of reassurance that we're doing enough. And then it comes back to the whole questions that we've asked before. Is the squad enough good enough for the squad? No, it's not. We should be doing better than just enough. But I think we're in a situation now where we'd all take just enough. Between we've said it before. I think you've asked before, would you settle for 17th? I think up until this point, I've always said, I think we can do more than that. We can finish 13th, 14th. I think if you ask me now, we'd settle for 17th. I think you just reluctantly say yes and forget about it and move on. So I still think we'll be all right. I just come back. That West Ham game is massive. It's huge. Win that again. They've got Wolves away. We've got Villa away. So in all likelihood, that gap might be a little bit closer by the time we play them. It might be, maybe it's 3 points, maybe it's even 1 point. Who knows? But that is a huge fixture, and a massive amount is riding on it. And I think, if I'm right in thinking, that's the only game. It's on the Tuesday, isn't it? Next week. It's the only game. It's on TV. It's the first game of that game week. So all eyes will be on it, from not just Forest fans, but from the rest of the Premier League watching media. So let's just hope we put in a good performance next Tuesday and get something from that game, because that will be. I think that will dictate how we all feel going into the second half of the season. It will be how we feel this time in 7 days' time.
I saw Binnett in the chat asked, where are the 4 points coming from those 4 games? And I suppose, Dan, you do look at the West Ham game and you really identify it as really definitely don't lose, but ideally find a win and then see what you can nick against Brentford away, I guess. I mean, we played so well against City. Arsenal are better than City, but if we can do our annoying thing of find a 9 out of 10 performance against Arsenal, then you don't know, and you don't go into any game with no hope at all. But yeah, the West Ham game does loom large, doesn't it?
Yeah, I guess you said earlier about not really entertaining the talk about Dyche and his position, but I would have thought if we end up without any more points after that West Ham game from where we are now, then unfortunately that is going to be the topic, isn't it? I think it's too early at this point to be sort of even considering that, because we know who's going to come in and blah blah blah. But that game, it's not even about performance. I mean, there's been a few games at this stage of the season where it's just not even about performance. It's about getting the result. Somehow these players need to be so strong defensively, so good in the final third to just take their 1 or 2 chances and see the game out. And there's no hiding from that game. It's going to be a pretty tough watch. That I don't think we'll probably have had such a tough watch for a long time. I can't even think of the last game where we'd have been that tense. I guess the Chelsea game at the end of last season probably being the one where it feels like your season's going to ride on that. I don't see us getting anything from Arsenal after that, because I think they just know how to get results over the line. A surprise at Villa would be lovely to soften the tension against West Ham, that's for sure.
I think so. Right, people appreciate people's patience because we're doing fewer shows. I've just got to lump in one more ad. So thank you very much, people, for sticking with us. Thanks very much to Vesta Blinds. If you're looking for made-to-measure shutters or blinds across the East Midlands, do click the link in the description. It's vestablinds.com. Right. Final thoughts, Paul, and you can make it on transfers, you can make it on the relegation battle, you can make it on complaining to PGMOL, you can make it on anything you want. What do you want to say?
The one thing I was going to say, actually, which I think a couple of people mentioned in the chat, is how much we're missing Sangare. So it's kind of arguably no coincidence that he's been away for the last 3 games and we've lost the last 3 games. I'm just trying to look at the next round of AFCON fixtures. I think they're playing tomorrow. It looks like they're going to qualify for the group stage. They're playing Gabon tomorrow. So doesn't look like we're going to get him back anytime soon, unfortunately. But he has been clearly a miss in these last 3 games. And yeah, that would be my thought, is that just get him back as soon as we can, ideally. And I know we're not going to have him for West Ham, so we've got to deal without it. But I would just make
sorry to interrupt. I think we might have him for West Ham. That's game week 23. I'd have to check that.
6th of January. It's a week's time. It's next week today. There's no way he's coming back a week today. They're going to be.
I'm looking at. Yeah, sorry, you're right.
We're not getting him back for that game. So I would just. I guess. I know people have been saying in the comments tonight that me in particular delusional, I'm too optimistic and all the rest of it. But I'm just trying to remain calm. I just think getting yourself tied up in knots in a pit of despair doesn't do anybody any favours. If we all turn up to the ground with that approach, I mean, if you look at what's happening with West Ham, someone just said it in the comments. It's half empty tonight. There's no atmosphere in that stadium. They can't get up for games. The same with Wolves. we've got to be better than that. We've got to try and drag this team, as much as we might get frustrated by them, similarly by the manager. We've all got a part to play in trying to create a positive environment for them to win football matches. Because if we all go to the ground and everyone's kind of sitting there doom and gloom and despair and all that, it's not going to help. It's just not going to help. So, let's just try, and I know it's not easy, let's just try and maintain an element of belief that that good things aren't too far around the corner. We've still got exciting games in Europe to come. There's that whole thing which I think maybe can be, I know as much as it's a challenge in terms of extra game time, but it can be a welcome distraction. Winning breeds winning, and if we can, if you think about it, it's no coincidence that we've had our best sort of spell under Dyche whilst we had a couple of good results in Europe, and then Europe's finished, and similarly the results in the league have tailed off. So maybe a couple of positive results in Europe in the course of January might well then breed a bit of confidence to take into the league games as well.
I read that wrong. Sorry. Brentford away, I think, is most likely a return date for Sangare. Possibly the Arsenal game, depending on what Ivory Coast do. But then it's hard to expect them to come straight back in and hit the ground running. Sometimes we've seen that with AFCON players, but that's when he should be back. Dan, any final words from you?
Not really. I think it'll be interesting to see what we do in January on the back of obviously going into it struggling. I think if we'd gone into January on the back of, say, beating Fulham and Everton, things look different. I guess whether it changes your recruitment, and for me, what we're missing is like another leader on the pitch. We could just do with one more slightly older leader somewhere on that pitch that's going to calm us down in some of these games and maybe just know when to manage the game a little bit more. It feels to me like the more I look at our recruitment in the summer, the more I think it'll pay fruition in like 2 seasons' time or a season's time. But we weren't expecting to be in this position where we've lost Chris Wood and as probably the big leader up front in particular. A couple of other players like Yates is out. Obviously, we're missing Sangare at the same time. Feel like there's just a little bit now where we could do with some more experience in there. Now, whether you can sign that in January, I don't know. Hopefully so, and hopefully probably at full-back as well would be a good position to try and get it in. But I think we're struggling with that a little bit. That's what I saw tonight again, is just we look a little bit too much like a relegation team without getting into specifics, where there's just a mistake or a lapse of concentration, and nobody can quite get a hold on a game. So I'll try and recruit for that. There's plenty of time left. Like in terms of people saying like you can be too optimistic or whatever at this point, there's just so many games left. And Fulham fans were probably doom and gloom like 3 or 4 games ago. I mean, it is mad to be completely doom or gloom. It's fine to criticise one performance. It's fine to have concerns over 3 or 4 games. But right now, there's plenty of time for us to put points on the board, even if we don't play that well.
Yeah, it is strange thinking about January. We'll wrap things up in a minute. But when I look at our team when everyone's fit, I don't know who the goalie's going to be, but Sells is a good goalie. John Victor's doing fine, but we're not going to sign a goalie in January. I wouldn't have thought. When Alarain is fit, we've got a good back four. Sangare and Anderson are good players. Gibbs White's a good player. I think the wingers, we've got 4 wingers who are a bit of a mix and match. No one's really nailed it down completely. Hutchinson's been the best of them. And then Igor Jesus has done well, but doesn't score enough goals. So in January, do we really, it sounds mad because we were absolutely terrible tonight, I thought. Do we need we need a striker, I think, which is weird. If Calimendo's going, and Taiwo was supposed to be going, but he's playing every game and Wood's out. So we've got 4, but I feel like we need 1 more. And we need a fullback, as JMC says in the chat. Other than that, when everyone's fit, we shouldn't need that much more, which makes it even more frustrating. Maybe it's such a good league. I don't know. I'll throw it back to you, Paul. What do you, just quickly before we do go, what do we need, do you think?
I think striker's got to be a priority, hasn't it? I think it's striker and possibly fullback. But again, in January, who do you attract from a striker point of view? I don't know.
Tough window, isn't it?
I've not sort of studied it, but if we can get somebody in that is going to be more of a threat than poor old Taiwo who looks at the minute, and Callum Wendell, I'm not really sure what to make of him. We haven't seen enough really to make much of an informed decision on him, other than scored a decent goal in Utrecht and. That's about it. I can't really think of a huge amount else that he's done. So, we obviously need somebody that the manager believes in from a striker's point of view, because I think that's That's something that's lacking at the minute is belief in anybody other than Igor Jesus whilst Wood's out, and he obviously can't do it all on his own. So we're going to need something else in that area to give him some backup.
Yeah, I'd like to see more Callum Wendo, but I just don't think the manager doesn't seem to want to see any more Callum Wendo. So it seems a bit of a moot point in the way. So that's probably why we need a striker. I don't. Maybe I am overrating our players. I saw someone say that in the chat, but when everyone's fit, it seems like a decent team. We spent 200 million quid, and I'm going to say we haven't got enough squad depth, which is a whole other depressing conversation. I think about all the money spent on McAtee and all that, who might go. We'll do more on this tomorrow, but McAtee's linked with Blueco FC or whatever we call them, and all these other things. So yeah, we'll leave it there anyway. 765 people with us, which means we've either, as I always say, done really well or really badly. So thanks for people's company. Do us a favour, hit like, hit subscribe. Thank you to all the members and anyone who's donated cash tonight. Really appreciate that. And any lovely 5-star review on Apple or Spotify. Back tomorrow with Franz and Greg. We'll do more on transfers. We might do the PGMOL thing, so I've got a view on that, which people probably disagree with. And we'll pull the threads of this game a bit more. That'll be our final show of the year. A lovely note to end on. Paul Morley, thank you very much.
Thank you. Yeah, it's not been one of the most enjoyable pods we've ever done, but look, it is what it is. And Happy New Year to everyone. Hopefully 2026 will bring us a bit more cheer than we've had in recent weeks.
Hopefully so. I've seen you look like you've been a bit browbeaten tonight, partly by me and partly by the chat. So I appreciate you plugging away.
It's all right. No, well, like I said, look, as Dan said, fine to criticise, but let's just, let's not throw a hissy fit and get throw our toys out the pram. Like, if you want to do that, fine. But I'm not in that space. I just think we need to try and pull together. That's when we, as a club, we're at our best when we pull together rather than when we're at odds with each other. And that's fans, players, manager, whoever. So, no point saying any more on it other than wish everyone a happy new year and hope everyone wakes up in a better mood tomorrow morning than they go to bed tonight.
Dan, thank you very much.
Thank you. Yeah, happy new year. A very, very strange way to end a year that started really well. I think on balance, 2025 still had more good moments than bad when you think of where we got to last season and everything. So hopefully this is just a minor blip and we'll all kick off 2026 much happier than we are tonight.
Hopefully. It's been quite a long blip. It goes back to Leicester at home. I don't know. Yeah, lots of good times before that and hopefully lots of good times to come. Right. Thanks very much to everyone. Hopefully we'll see you tomorrow, but if not, we shall see you soon.